Hey, welcome back, it's Kajal, and today we're going to be reviewing your CVs, and we're going to be going through the good things, the bad things, and hopefully you can apply some of these learnings to your own CV. Now, I'm going to be comparing a few CVs and go by section, so hopefully this will be the most helpful format for you. Alright, so let's just start with the top. This individual has added a photo of themselves, they've added their address, and they've also added their ethnicity, which I've hidden. Now, I would really tell you not to do this because they're going to discriminate you based on how you look. If you look like a creep, they're going to be like, hey, I don't want this person working in my firm. If you live in a good area, potentially, you might be like, hey, this person doesn't need the job. So be really careful of putting any information which allows them to make judgments about yourself in terms of where you live, what you look, rather than what you've done. And you want them to make first impressions based on what you've done and your achievements. So don't give everything away, only give what you need to give. This person has also added their email and their phone number, which is great, but has forgotten to add their LinkedIn. You want to have these three pieces of information and you want to make sure they are hyperlinked, especially your email sending you an email or your LinkedIn sending you to your LinkedIn profile. This person has taken up literally a quarter of their first page just with some of this basic information, and it has a CV that runs to 2 pages. You do not need that. You want to keep your CVs to 1 page, especially if you are applying out of university and going to your first job. If you do think you have relevant experience, then yeah, sure, do 2 pages. But I'm telling you, recruiters are only going to read 1 page because they literally have hundreds of CVs to go through. If you are an experienced hire and you do have relevant experience, that's more than fine. 2 pages is great. So this is a great first example. Just in 1 line, number, obviously the email. I would also add LinkedIn here and link that, but that's a great first example. Now, this person also has a quick profile. I would say that you should use a profile only if 1, you don't have as much relevant experience for the job for consulting, or 2, you have something which really makes you differentiate yourself and stand out. Now, let me show you a great example. This person has put Best Starter Award at TFS, increased average weekly store turnover by 40%, and exceeded sales target by 140%. That shows to me that this person has had an impact wherever they've gone. You don't want to tell them what you've just done, that you're an economics graduate, you're passionate about consulting. This stuff, everyone says. You are not differentiating yourself by saying that. Show me numbers to make you stand out. Now, the summary can also be used to craft a story about your journey into consulting. Was there a reason which particularly led you into consulting, or specifically, did you have something which caused potentially excruciating circumstances when trying to get a good grade? Here you can also see another example where an individual has written a deep interest to corporate strategy, passionate about the business side of technology. This stuff is generic. Everyone writes this stuff, and I will tell you, majority of the CVs you sent through have had some sort of thing like this if you've put a profile. So please do not make it generic. Add some sort of story or use numbers to make you differentiate yourself with awards or with impact you've had on work experiences. So at a minimum, you want to have professional experience, you want to have education, you want to have achievements, and you also want to have an area for skills. This person has also decided to add courses and projects. Beautiful CV, by the way, but has decided to add courses and projects. I think half of this could go into work experience, and really, you don't really need to put your projects down unless you are going for a research role. Otherwise, it's defunct. This person has also called out languages. Again, you can write this in 1 line: Italian, English, French. This person also has interest, and I'll get onto that in a moment, but only add interest if it differentiates you compared to the normal reading, swimming that you typically see, because everyone does that and it's very generic. So let's start with education. This individual has written Brunel University, BSc Business and Management. I would definitely swap this around. So I would start with Business and Management first, then Brunel University. And this is because in the back of their minds, recruiters do have some sort of quota they have for each university or each type of university. So sometimes Russell Group have a certain amount, and then, Oxbridge would have a certain amount and so forth, the non-Russell Group. So you don't want them to already have preconceptions that the first thing they see is the university. You want them to see what you've studied. Then ideally, what you've predicted to get or what you've achieved, and then your university, in my opinion. You could potentially swap the university and the grade, but put that grade in your first line. And this is because recruiters don't read your CV word for word, they scan your CV. So what they do is that they read the first line, they go all the way down, read the action verbs, and then they read the first line of your experience. Typically, I would say they read it like an F. If they are more intrigued, they then go and read a little bit more. But that's the first thing they do, is literally your education first line and your experience first line. So if you've got a good grade, write it in your first line. I would also say is that you don't really need to write what modules are done. They typically got an idea in terms of what you've studied. Operations, international business environment is quite typical. Maybe managing change and creativity could make you stand out, but again, it's a waste of a line in my opinion. I would keep any awards you've got from the university. This person's also written another foundation course they've done, and they've literally written which statistic they've got. Do not do that. You don't need that at all. Get rid of it. If it's anything above 80%, maybe add the statistic. But this, my friend, is a 2.1. So add it as a 2.1. Even though you've just scraped it in, add it as a 2.1. Because why are you downgrading yourself or giving them that information where they box you a little bit lower in their heads? This person hasn't included any high school information, secondary school information. So here's a good example. They've put which high school they've gone to, what the A-levels were, and what their GCSEs were. You just need maths, English, if you want to call them out specifically, but that's great. You just need to keep that. Anything post your GCSEs, you do not need to include in your CV when you're applying for consulting firms. Since we've got the CV, let's move on to experience. This person has 7 experiences, and some of this stuff is not relevant to consulting. You do not need the stuff which is not relevant because it's making you go onto 2 pages. Cut the stuff that's not relevant or the most relevant to consulting and bring your CV to 1 page. They've also just wasted space. So they've got 1 line for, looks like, the company they've worked for, the location. Bring the second line and merge it into the first line. I would also get rid of, let's say, London. You don't need that. You don't need Heathrow. You don't need work from home. Just write United Kingdom. Even remote, write United Kingdom here. It makes it consistent and it just gives you a bit more white space. I love that this person has linked their portfolio. If you've got anything where you've got portfolios or things to show, please link it. It looks like this person has put an internship experience, a telephone interview, a team member. This doesn't sell yourself. You need to basically write the role that you've played. So let me just take one instance being telephone interviewer. Interviewed company directors and CEOs, allowed me to communicate effectively, written a report. This does not sound like you just phoned people, firstly. Secondly, you do not want to be modest. Your CV is to sell yourself. So use this and write something like research assistant. You did much more than telephone interviewing. You research, you also wrote a report. So big yourself up. What I liked here is that you've put statistics. Now, I know they've not done this across everything, but you want to put one sort of statistic across every single experience if you can, because it brings to life what you've done. Exceeded survey completion targets by at least 18%. Sold products to more than 50%. It just brings it to life. It makes it feel a little bit more real, and it also makes the interviewer feel like you've really achieved something. It's all about perception. When they read through your CV, they have 6 seconds to make a judgment if they want to continue reading, if they want to push you forward. And it's all about showing your impact and showing that you are different from other people. So if I go back to this CV, this person hasn't really written what impact they've made, and there's so much more you could do in terms of these bullet points. I think your professional experience is one of the biggest parts of your CV and should take up at least 50%, and this is much less than 50%. So I would potentially also write your bullet points, firstly starting with the same action verb. So managed, developed, planned instead of business plan. You want to make it consistent. And also secondly, you can use some sort of framework. You can use the STAR framework, which is situation, task, action, result. The one tip I would say is when you're writing your CV is think about all the skills you need for consulting, like leadership, communication, teamwork, and make sure for each of those skills you've got one sort of experience, or potentially in your achievements or extracurricular activities, one sort of experience which demonstrates that skill, and that interviewer can infer it from whatever you've done. So for instance, when I go through this professional experience, a thesis research on ESG sustainability, maybe potentially you have attention to detail, but it's not explicit here, okay? Business case and slide preparation sounds like you have PowerPoint skills, which is great, but again, you could definitely start this a bit more impactful, saying prepared a slide presentation which was delivered to XX amount of people, and the result was that you got your business case approved, or something along those lines. But please try and use some sort of framework to kind of firstly give structure, make sure everything's consistent, but make sure you answer the so what. Let's just take one more experience. So this person has written founder and president of this charity, looks like co-founder, summer intern. Now again, summer intern doesn't give me any color on what you've done. At least right, looks like you've done banking intern, United Bank. That's more than helpful. They've also written, what the actual charity or that firm does. I don't think you need that. I think they can just Google that themselves. It's a waste of line. This person has also not included it into this one. I'm just saying, if you're going to do something, make sure it's consistent across the whole CV. If you're going to have bullet points, make sure they're all aligned. Like, look, this person's bullet points are different to these bullet points here. This makes a difference. This shows you do not have attention to detail. So please make sure you do your formatting as well as you go along. We've also added leadership positions, case competitions and projects. Again, I mean, unless you've got something really impressive, you do not need your case competitions, okay? Unless you've won a case competition, put that under a section called achievements, okay? Do not have just case competitions. Talk to me through your awards and your achievements. So I would put your awards here, and maybe any achievements you've got else from this. For instance, won the referendum causing NUS a net gain of this amount. Put this interesting stuff, the stuff which makes you different from other people, into another area called awards and achievements. This is such a waste of space. So elected member, where it looks like you manage 200 plus societies, which is great. Student representative, which I don't think you need. It's not impressive. This one looks great, won the referendum as I mentioned. So add these two into another area called achievements, and also add awards in that area as well. All right, so let's move on to skills, activities, and interests. Now, languages is fair, add languages, but when I see things such as MS Office, no, do not add MS Office into technical skills. Everyone knows MS Office. This does not differentiate itself. Stuff such as Starter or eViews or Python potentially could, especially in consulting, but MS Office does not. Any certifications you want to add, please make sure they're relevant, and do not write a long list. Maybe write 3 certifications which you think are really relevant to that job. So fragrance expert, if you're going for consulting, this is not relevant at all, I would say, so please get rid of that. So interest is one which I just think you should not add unless you have something which really differentiates you again. And I know I keep hammering this home, but things such as reading, no, everyone does that, building relationships and networking. I don't think you need to write that as an interest. I mean, if you network as an interest, I think you can come across as a people pleaser. Investing, you probably can keep. It sounds a little bit more different compared to not a lot of people invest. Let's look at another one. And I mean, if I take this one, Bright Network Consulting and IB internship experience under extracurricular activities. You are not selling yourself if you're telling them that you do internship experiences as an extracurricular activity. You want to show that you are a person and not someone who is just about work. They will not want to work with you otherwise. So this person has written a long list of skills, software, and languages. I think you don't need to write this stuff. This stuff should be coming across in your experience. I also think such as, again, MS Office we don't need, but Power BI, that stuff is relevant for consulting, so keep that in. You don't need it under software. You can merge that under skill. Oops. Okay, cool. And then again, languages, you don't need to write 5 long bullet points, a waste of space. Please just write it into like 1 line. All right, so I think I've covered most of it except for formatting. And I know I kind of talked about it as we were going along. People ask me what format should I do? Now, I do think that this is the typical consulting format that you would see. Very clean, lots of information, and it's just how do I say it? It's like muscle memory for recruiters. They know what to read. They know how to read this. So it's really easy, really quick for them to do it. Now, a format like this or like this makes you stand out, and it's something different. I would only say is that there's a few other things you want to do. Make sure you bold words which you want them to really read. So I'm going to take this example here. Managed a team of 7, right? That shows me that you've got leadership, that you've got team working skills. Bolden it. I mean, anything, again, here, best starter and achieve the highest customer service ranking in 21 branches. Bold that. Anything which differentiates you, anything that shows consulting skill, I would bold, okay? I love the use of icons to bring some color into this. I would also say you can use color. You can use color to make things stand out if you wanted to, but don't use more than 2 colors. Don't use more than 2 fonts on a page, I would say. Keep it to 1 page as I mentioned. And again, make sure that all of the bullet points are aligned. And even when you go to a different area, that indent is the same indent as it is here. This stuff really does matter when you talk to consultants. We care about, formatting, and it shows to us attention to detail. So the one thing about using bubbles and some sort of scoring and ranking, which I see people use mostly for skills, not for languages, when you do that, you are only hurting yourself because you are telling them that you suck at something. Whatever it is, you're telling them that you suck at something. Why make that decision for them? Let them come to that decision themselves, and you don't need to give over information which is going to hurt you rather than what's going to help support you. So be conscious of that. All right, so this was a really quick comparison of a few CVs. I am going to take one CV and deep dive into that one specific CV and literally be very brutal. So that will be my next CV review one, and I hope this was helpful. Let me know if it was in the comments, and I will see you next week. Toodles.